It's fun. I love this sport. I gave it my all. It's fucking crazy. I had a blast, and thank you to all the fans and everyone.
All right, folks, it's over. What knocks out Jake Paul in the 6th round of
would align with a ring that size, a negative style, as we mentioned. It really comes down to the fan interest. Jake Paul is on a 2-fight stretch coming into this one, which really put his reputation on the line.
Boxing professionals are reacting to Jake Paul possibly retiring after his shocking knockout loss to Anthony Joshua. Jake has hinted that once he feels he has achieved his goals in boxing, he plans to step away from the sport and try to pursue a career in the NFL. This statement has sparked major discussion, as it could mark a dramatic change in Jake Paul's athletic path and signal the end of his boxing journey.
For this, like legitimately, just to play like safety and just deck people. No, I swear to God, I'm about to bring hella ratings to whatever team I'm on.
Where would you want to go if you can go to any team?
Shit, the Browns.
So
I can run a 4.34.
He's the fastest man on the planet.
I got hands. I have the size, the power. I can knock people out with one punch. So why can't I play free safety?
Do you think you coming into the NFL would be the equivalent of like when an NFL player says, I'm going to try to box now?
No, because I played football my whole life. At the end of the day, it's coverage, knowing your plays, and then just being fast.
The boxing world responded strongly after the knockout, with one former user posting a brutal reaction, saying, "Jake Paul knocked out. His career is over. This bum is done." Duke McKenzie also shared his thoughts on the fight, pointing out how small Jake Paul looked compared to Anthony Joshua. He explained that even when Jake tried to throw punches, he struggled to reach AJ cleanly, showing how uneven the matchup was. McKenzie strongly suggested that Jake should stop chasing fights like this, warning that continuing could be dangerous and harmful to his boxing reputation.
To throw a shot, he would lunge in, jump in, and because he was so short, he'd miss. And then he ended up stumbling over his feet and falling over. Sometimes in that fight, he reminded me of, have you seen that Kung Fu film called The Drunken Master? Except for he wasn't a master. As a Kung Fu guy who walks around and normally kicks people's ass, but he looks drunk all the time. That's what that fight reminded me of. It was such a poor showing from Jake Paul. You know, I mean, it's a well-documented fact. There was a lot of money on the line. And I'm sure you, Max, as I would, and anybody else in the street would fight Anthony Joshua for 75 million. You just would. And the same thing would happen. And even after the fight, now the fight's over.
Another former user, Chelsea, reacted emotionally to Jake Paul's loss, posting, "I hardly come here anymore, but I'm so glad Jake Paul lost. Maybe now he'll shut up." Former UFC champion Michael Bisping also gave his reaction, calling Joshua's performance a masterclass. He explained how badly Jake was hurt, noting that AJ's powerful uppercuts and combinations left Paul with no space to escape. Even when Jake tried to run and avoid damage, he could not get away. Bisping stressed that the injuries to Jake's face were serious and that he needs proper rest and recovery before thinking about any future fights. The bout clearly exposed Jake's limits against elite-level opponents.
In my humble opinion, because I'm a big Anthony Joshua fan. Of course, I've been a supporter for the longest time. A rather lackluster, unmotivated Anthony Joshua that didn't look like he was being particularly nasty, right? A lot of the time, he was out of range, and okay, it is hard to land a shot on someone that's backing up and moving away the whole time. And there was a lot of times where he had him in the corner, and he could have thrown a shot. And sometimes he was telegraphing his shots. And anytime he did go in to throw a punch, as I said before, Jake Paul would shoot in and turn it into a wrestling match. And even when he wasn't shooting in, he was clinching a lot. This is boxing. It's not MMA, as we know. The referee should have done a much better job of getting in there and separating them much, much faster. The 6th round, I think it was the 4th round, he got dropped twice. In the 5th round, he got through it. In the 6th round, caught him with the jab, a glancing right hook. He goes down, and that was that. That was all she wrote, right? I did a live. There was about 9,000 people watching at one point. Nobody was particularly enjoying the matchup. Listen, okay? I respect both men. I respect anyone really that steps into the ring, okay? And certainly going up against Anthony Joshua, that was a tall task, okay? You know, metaphorically and figuratively, right? It was a tall task. It was a big job. It was a tough opponent. It was a mismatch, and it was, right? Jake Paul never worried Anthony Joshua once. He never rung his bell. He never caused any damage. He never had him worried. He never did anything. It wasn't a fight. It was a display of how long can Jake Paul last? Can he run away long?
Former user Cabaral's Finest reacted to the injury news, posting, Jake Paul has gone to the hospital with a suspected broken jaw. Bro was forced into early retirement. Sean Jones also shared his reaction, saying at least the fight was real and not scripted. He pointed out that even though Jake's jaw was broken, Joshua did not appear to use his full power, suggesting the knockout could have been even worse. Jones emphasized how serious the injury was while giving credit to the fight's authenticity. He said Jake faced a real test, and the outcome showed the harsh reality of stepping in with a world-class boxer like Anthony Joshua.
People who were fully convinced that this fight was 100% rigged. Like, people said that this is a clown show, and they said, this is rigged, this is scripted. Okay, so now Joshua's won. What are you going to say to that? So was it scripted that Joshua was going to win? You see this whole narrative about, oh, the fight's rigged, the fight's scripted. That's illegal to do, and Joshua is not going to tarnish his legacy by doing something like that. Would Jake Paul do something like that? Maybe so, yeah, but not someone like Joshua. Come on. Now, to be fair, 80% of that fight was looking a little bit dodgy. It was looking like Joshua wasn't throwing as much as he usually would. Jake Paul was landing on Joshua. He landed a really strong jab that knocked Joshua's head back. He landed a couple of decent overhand rights. In fact, Jake was kind of the first one who landed the biggest shots of the fight. But this is the thing, anyone who fights, even on like a low-level basis, or who just does some sparring, will understand that when you fight someone who has got nowhere near the skill level as you, sometimes it can be a little bit harder because they're awkward. They're doing stuff that you don't really expect. You know, sometimes when you fight beginners, it's a bloody nightmare. Just like, you know, awkward movements. You're like, what are they throwing? You don't expect certain shots to come that do come. And then you fight someone who's a little bit more traditionally sound with the fundamentals, and it's almost a little bit easier. And I think that's what we've seen here in this fight. AJ has had an easier time with some fighters who've got like 40 professional fights with 20 KOs on the record than he did with Jake Paul. Why is that? Oh, because it's scripted. It's scripted. No, it's not scripted. It's just because Jake Paul is awkward and he's a beginner in relation to Joshua. So Joshua just took some time to figure them out. You could see Joshua was getting a little bit frustrated in that 4th and 5th round.
User Mir71 sent a sharp message to Jake Paul after the loss, posting, do everyone a favor and don't return. Many boxing fans feel they have seen enough. Analyst Liam Goff warned that Jake Paul is now in serious trouble after his brutal defeat. Goff explained that Jake's boxing options are basically closed for the moment due to the severity of his injuries. A broken jaw and other damage mean he must take a long break and focus fully on recovery. Goff stressed that Jake's health comes first and that returning too soon could have serious long-term consequences for his future in sports.
That face-off with Tank Davis, he was looking at a guy who was, 5-6 inches shorter than him and probably 60-70 pounds lighter, right? So he was probably looking at that thinking, yeah, you're a legit boxer, yeah, you hit very hard, but look how much bigger I am to you. Contrast that to him looking up at Anthony Joshua and realizing, oh my God, look at the size of you in comparison to me. That's a bit different. And I think with Jake Paul, it really dawned on him what's going on. But Jake Paul has to keep face. He has to stay essentially in that persona that, you know, I am the man, I'm going to win this, trying to sell a dream to a casual, a bit like what Eddie Hearn does. Trying to sell the casual audience that this is going to be a real fight, quote unquote. It was a real fight. It's not scripted, but you know what I mean. That he's really in this fight. That's what he was trying to do. And he did that well up until fight night. Boy, did he fail miserably on fight night. Again, I give him credit. He doesn't need to box. He can choose an easier profession, as I say. But to go in and to run around the ring like that, that was something else entirely. I mean, he was doing his best Roadrunner impression in there. He was running around that ring from the minute that bell went. That was all he was trying to do. And listen, AJ's performance, I can critique it from a defensive point of view, that he got hit with some silly shots that he probably shouldn't have been hit with. He was trying to cut the ring off in a ring as big as that. It's not easy. All right. And furthermore, if you're in there with an opponent who purely just wants to survive, he's no interest in winning the fight. He just wants to go to rounds. People, you could be one of the most you could be a prime Mike Tyson, Bone Crusher Smith, prime example. People never talk about that fight with Mike Tyson because
After the injury, Jake Paul updated fans on X about his condition and recovery. He thanked his medical team and shared how difficult the process has been, writing, just got out of surgery. Everything went smoothly. Thanks for all the love. Lots of pain and stiffness. Got to eat liquids for 7 days. Shout out to the amazing team at Miami University Hospital. Everyone was so caring. Wade also commented on Jake's situation, saying that Jake may have felt he had already achieved enough and could focus on big money fights instead of chasing belts. He mentioned possible future matchups with stars like Canelo or even a slower year for Jake. Wade added that a massive fight with Tyson Fury could exist if Jake fully commits, but admitted Jake was nowhere near Joshua's level in size, power, speed, or endurance. Still, he respected Jake for stepping into the ring and called the event a huge spectacle for boxing fans. That's it for today's video. Until next time.